G'day, welcome to Media Tech Talk. I'm David Richards.
And I'm Paul Luckett. What happens when a privacy-minded engineer decides to rebuild digital identity from the ground up, without ever touching the user's data? Today's guest, Marko Markovic, is the founder of AdFixus, one of the fastest rising privacy-first identity companies in the region. Under his leadership, AdFixus has become the trusted identity layer for some of the biggest names in media and commerce, including Seven West Digital, Gumtree Group, Car Sales, and even Adobe, who integrated AdFixus directly into their real-time customer data platform collaboration. The results have been remarkable. Car Sales recorded a 41% uplift in conversions, a 300% increase in addressable audiences, and improved returning user recognition across all major browsers, including Safari. Gumtree used AdFixus to unify identity across their marketplace brands. Seven now delivers privacy-safe addressable audiences across 7plus and 7news.com.au, and Adobe's collaboration framework uses AdFixus as a privacy-first bridge between publishers and advertisers.
And Marko has also become a leading voice in the privacy debate through interviews in MI3 and industry events, calling for stronger controls around de-identification, higher data quality standards, and future where identity enhances trust rather than eroding it. So here's a question. What happens when you prove that privacy-first technology doesn't just protect consumers, it actually outperforms the systems the industry depends on for more than 20 years? Let's find out. Marko, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be part of your show, and hopefully we can make this very interesting for everybody listening.
I'm sure we will, otherwise we'll edit those parts out.
Yeah, please.
Now, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into ad tech and how that first began.
I'll try to compress this because I don't think that my life can fit into a podcast, because I've just in short, I moved 14 times across 5 countries.
Wow.
So I lived pretty much everywhere, and I've seen a bit of everything. And this exposure also helped me to pick battles and see where do I want to participate and how can I help back the community. And this is my primary thing in life.
Yeah. What was that moment early in your career where something clicked and you just thought, this is the space that I want to change?
I think it was probably when I was back in the US. I worked for Microsoft. Those early days, 2011, when they were building the early machine learning models that we all today are going to start using in form of AI. I worked in a search engine bank when we were trying to kind of compete with Google. And that was sort of an exposure of ad tech, if you think about it, search engine ads, right? And then you see how the big tech operates, how they're tracking, what's happening on that space, and how the whole ecosystem works. And that prompted me to start thinking about what's going to be the future, how the future is going to look like, that there must be some privacy coming. And that was really, really early on, if you think about it.
Yeah.
That was the moment when I kind of found myself in a space. This is something I want to contribute. And soon after that, I came back to Australia and I worked for some of the big publishers as well. So sort of kind of escalated to that moment where we are today.
Yeah, those publishers that Paul was just talking about, they're not easy brands to bring into a business these days. They're obviously scrutinizing around who they work with, more specifically because of the privacy laws and regulations, and the ones that we're about to see unfurl shortly because of federal law being updated here in Australia. How do you go about bringing those brands in and building trust with them so that you can actually do business? Is there a little bit of a secret that you can share with us?
There's no secret. I'll tell you about the challenge, because why I told you what I've done in my life and career and changing all of the countries and exposing myself to change. It comes back to the same thing. We as a humanity, we only strive when there's a change. Now, we all say we want to have a change, publishers want to have a change, but change comes with a massive cost, right? Massive cost to all of us. So somebody needs to drive the change. And as I said, those big publishers, they want to do the change. They all say we want to do this stuff. We believe in the privacy, but then that requires a follow-up. And that follow-up is all normally very scary. It's scary for us when we change a job, let alone changing the whole industry. So there's no secret recipe. It's just like pushing when everybody else is telling you this is not going to work. You're not going to change. You keep pushing, right? You keep kind of really believing in that stuff and really trying to motivate people. And there's great people in our industry. They truly want to do this stuff. It's just finding a way. How do you with the change, what I like to say, you don't necessarily need to change everything. I don't believe that you need to go around and reinvent a new car. The ideal scenario is you can modify what you have and make it better. It's a manageable change, not a shocking change. So when I work with publishers, I try to figure out what do they have in place, what are the systems they have in place, and how do we manage the change in a more easier way that can be digestible, that people are not scared, that they see this as a path moving forward. And that's been hit and miss, or not hit and miss in the sense that we already have a lot of publishers, great people following up and really wanting to do this stuff. It's just like the sheer energy you need to invest in this is actually tremendous. And there's no recipe. So I could just work with people. It's a change doesn't come on its own. You need to work with people and get them to buy into the vision.
Yeah. I'm going to take a side step here. Do you want to take us down the path of AdFixus and tell us more about what the business does for the publishers that you're working with and broadcasters? And
the
problem that
we
you're
really need
to solve,
to explain this in a simplistic way.
Yeah.
But I'm a strong believer that the data needs to belong to the publisher. That's the way they can protect us, right? No more unauthorized tracking on the internet. No more third-party companies going and collecting. So what we do for them, we pretty much run our identity as a service. Here's the ID. This is your ID. We don't monetize. We don't track. Take it and build the insights. Now, the next step is like, how do you exchange the data with someone else? Right? Again, it's a first party to a first party relationship because both sides need to be AdFixus clients. There's nothing in between. So giving that ownership back to publishers enables them to have a better insights, enables them to have better privacy control and to get ready what's coming. But also it's better for the consumer. So from a publisher perspective, you help them monetize their audiences better. You help them control their destiny.
Right. So I'm assuming that the integrations and the technology that you're using, obviously sophisticated, and managing privacy controls. How do you go about validating those to make sure that they meet your standards and also those of the publishers and broadcasters and advertisers that you're working with?
Technology is built in such a way that no party can track you around. That's number one. There's multiple, very similar to what you see with Google and other stuff. We have our own patent on encryption. So the way that we encrypt, identify, we hide for ourselves. So there's no way for somebody to basically track you now if you go from one site to another across our publishers. There's multiple keys involved. So the privacy is embedded deeply into the tech. So that the first concept when I built this business, I said, if we really want to do this properly, you need to make it in a way that not even us can track it, right? So that's number one. And you need to basically have this control in the tech itself. Now, when it comes to second part, which is basically if you create this anonymous identifier, which is another thing I believe, that if the publisher goes and connects this stuff to your PII data and then starts sharing that, that's not something you can police. It's outside of my control, and you can't solve all the problems. But that's luckily to us, that's mainly governed by their legal teams and whatnot. So they will protect you better than the third party that will connect your data anyway.
Yep. Are we talking about a tag-based solution for collecting the data?
You mean when I talk about the third parties or ourselves?
Yeah, for yourselves and the way that you distribute.
It's namely, we see it as a first party solution. So it's namely, you tag your page and you get a first party cookie. So it's sort of very similar.
Yep.
Everything is technically a tag, right?
Yep. All right. Okay. So I'd imagine your data graph, basically a data graph or your ID graph would be pretty big in the way that you're integrating. More specifically, when you look at the likes of Adobe and the number of different brands that they're working with. Do you want to take us through that? What's the point of difference here between you and some of the other businesses that are operating in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't build any identity graphs. We don't do any of that stuff. We don't. Our ID is fully anonymized, so it's just a random sequence of character. It's a cookie sits in a consumer browser. It's an evolution of a cookie. So it's a first-party cookie under control of the consumer. As opposed to most of the stuff you see on the market, I'm a big believer we don't want to have SSPs and DSPs trading with hashed emails and whatnot. That would be backward in privacy. We need to keep the web anonymous as much as we can. So that's what I fight for. And from perspective of ourselves, we don't go around and try to build a graph and try to understand what you're doing. We just give a cookie to a publisher, and that's where the accountability stops. And then they go around and ingest that into backend system, CDP, and whatever they have. And then they build an identity graph themselves. And now if you think about the solutions on the market, Some of them will build identity graphs, and so some of them will try to understand and control the data. We are completely hands-off data.
So what about in a situation where, I mean, some of the publishers that we've mentioned already, you know, with a couple of domains, but what about a publisher like News Corp Australia who has, you know, upwards of 30 plus domains that they're managing, so a wide network? You know, obviously there's a lot of those types of media companies in the US and the UK and Europe. So how would AdFixus kind of work with those publishers to help gain a single view on their audience across their entire network?
Yeah, we can use News Corp, we can use Calcis as an example, 10 different domains, right? So the whole thing, the number one thing that we help them with is having a unified persistent cookies across the same all number of domains, right? And then when you have that, you can ingest that into your CDP or any other backend system. You can understand who the consumer is, especially if you have multiple domains with the same intent. Sometimes you don't have a lot of crossover because you're not going to go and buy a car and a boat at the same time, right? But it's very useful if you have same intent and if this intent exists between the advertiser and a publisher, right? So we help them understand the audience and have a unified view of the audience across the network, which is super powerful. It's what we had a long time ago with third-party cookies. Now you're doing it in a bit of a better way where no third party can do that. You can do that. You can understand your audience. You can build your segments based on that, and you can see how the behavioral thing works. And we only do that for legal entities that controlling stake in those domains. So basically, you're not going to get the same ID unless you're the owner of the domain.
Mm.
Yeah. Sorry, Paul.
I guess. Sorry, go, David.
No, I'm really sort of wanting to dig into the weeds of the technology. Obviously, where privacy first is obviously a really big concern for publishers and advertisers. What are some of the safeguards that you have in place to make sure that is a solution that you have first and foremost in the way that you deliver your product?
Well, as I tried to explain, there's controls in place the way that we create those cookies. They sit in the browser. Even the main cookie sits in the browser of the consumer. And there's the multiple key encryptions. There's basically privacy is there from the perspective of the consumer. And I always saw this, you know, if you talk about the future, I build this product to be a consumer product. Yeah, we're helping publishers, but I believe in a consumer that will actually be able to go in their browser and control who can actually track them. That's the whole vision I have for this thing. The main super powerful thing sits in your browser and you're under control. Now, we can argue how many consumers are actually going to do that. A different story. And also what we urge most of our partners is to go around and do the consent. Basically, go and ask for the consent. Make sure you get all the consents on your part, that this is privacy driven. And then you're pretty much safe. You follow all the privacy rules. We'll see what's going to happen. There's this discussion in Europe now, and we'll see what's going to happen with this whole concept. I think a couple of years ago, I was saying it doesn't work if you have 70 different providers on your phone, right? It needs to be a very simple opt-in. And if you think about this, is exactly what we built for. Very simple opt-in. I'm going in interacting with one website. I'm fine for you to go around and track me, and I'm fine for you to know who I am. Not really track me because it's anonymous unless I sign in. And I'm also fine if I'm buying a car. I always start from myself. If I'm buying a car, and if Tarsus knows I'm buying a car, or News Corp knows I'm buying a car, and I can get a 5% discount for Subaru or Renault or whatever, any other car, that's that magical thing we're all trying to solve in AdTech. It's a three-way relationship, right? Publisher gets something, advertiser gets something, and a consumer gets something, like without exposing this to everybody. So that's why I think the way that if you think about the publishers and who we have at the tech, the privacy is at its core. Get the consent, have a cookie in a browser, nobody can abuse the cookie. We are not tracking it. We're sort of sitting in between. As they call us, we're Switzerland of data. Like we sit in between, we don't do anything. We're neutral.
Yep, great. So let's go back to, I want to go back to just the story and how you've come into this. So obviously, you've said you've traveled quite a lot. That's been part of your journey and how it's formed your view on, I suppose, seeing the challenges that people are facing. What was it exactly that, you know, before we jumped on the show, we were talking about you living in Melbourne, There's obviously some inspiration points there. It's not an easy industry to get into, specifically around data. It's really complicated and it's evolving. We had Google talking, about removing third-party cookies or cookie tracking, et cetera, et cetera. So you've obviously come in at a really challenging time. You obviously like a challenge. Is that how you would describe yourself and what you're doing in this space?
Yeah, I think if I could have picked the harder thing, I wouldn't be able to do so.
Right.
I think I picked the hardest battle of all, right? First of all, starting a couple of years back when everybody's saying cookies are going to disappear, then they're staying because obviously there's interest in them staying. And then you're trying to do this whole massive privacy thing and change the people's minds about how this is important. And even if you mentioned someone at the beginning, I spoke with on one of the conferences when I said, if somebody really wants to do something malicious, they don't need to know the name of your dog. They need to know what you're doing on the internet, right? So they need to track your behavioral stuff. And now with the AI, there's a real danger to all of us. So we really need to wake up and protect ourselves from those sort of things, right? So that's why I'm fighting the battle and I'm not giving up. But you're absolutely right. It is a very challenging time in the industry because people are confused. They don't know if this is going to happen, what's going to happen. Should I go and invest? Reluctance to change, right? Do I want to go and change now or wait for the last moment? So it's all of that stuff is happening. But I'm a true believer that, things are moving and look at all of the traction we got and look at all the great people believe in privacy and they're doing it. And some of them are doing it even without, waiting. So it gives me hope.
Yeah. Do you think AI has changed the narrative significantly enough to move the discussion away from third-party cookies that we were talking about 18 months ago? Are you seeing that?
It's a new shiny thing, right? Like with everything else, it's a change without the change. Like I think everybody, the way I see it, people think AI is going to go magically change it for us and we don't have to do the hard work. I think if you have to be real, hard work is in front of us. We're not going to change anything. We're not going to change climate change, anything without actually rolling up the sleeves and paying the price for the change. So AI is not going to magically solve our problems. It's actually going to make them worse, right? We need to be ready. How are you going to go? It's actually more work. If people don't see that, it's going to simplify stuff, but it's also going to make mistakes. So it's been a lot of, another confusion. Like you kind of have one thing and then suddenly, oh, look at this. Now I need to think about the agents. Oh, how is this going to work? It's like ChatGPT going to share my data now with the publisher. What's going to happen there, right? Are you going to sell me ads there?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of confusion coming up. I still think it's still going to be, someone needs to produce the content, right? Like I've been in ML 15 years ago, the most critical thing in machine learning is like the data, the quality of the data. You need to feed. I've trained models myself, massive models. So someone needs to keep producing the quality content. We need to keep publishers running. We need to keep the internet running, right? So AI is going to get dumber if we don't do this, right? It's going to teach itself. So the worst thing happens. So I think we need to be forward looking. Yes, absolutely. Adopt it. But it is causing another layer of confusion to our industry as well.
Is it giving you a breather to have that moment where you can not worry about the discussion every time somebody talks to you about the end of the third-party cookie, and giving you the opportunity to do more time around research and development? Is that your view, or are you still seeing that the pressure's on?
I think it depends where you go, right? So I don't think that people are actually seriously still thinking about the AI in our industry, right? They're talking about the agents and other stuff. I think web is going to remain a big portion of what we do in one shape or the other. It might be from different browsers or whatever. It's still going to be that connection. I think it's going to be a massive problem. Yeah, I'm using a lot of R&D and thinking about what's going to come next, right? But you're also going to have a problem. How are you going to change data if the AI agent comes from, ChatGPT goes and starts scraping the page, right? So how do you exchange the signed versus non-signed in environment? And that's another thing that we will need to solve in our industry and make sure that we don't start being known across the whole internet, right? That's the worst outcome. It gives me a bit of breather from perspective that, you can actually sit down and think about the future and how this is going to shape, because it's going to change in the next couple of years even more.
And have you seen, sorry, let me just go back to the business you started, AdFixus, am I right? It's 2014?
The tech started actually a bit later. I started building 2015, 2016, the first glimpse of the tech. I think then the first application for the patent, 2018. The business officially operating 2000 or in Australia 2020, so it's a bit later. But the whole idea was in the building, in the making for a long time.
So that's a long run up to get. Look, businesses are like that, aren't they? Right? You've got from the time that you come up with an idea to when you actually become I suppose, proficient in making a genuine return on your investment, you can start employing staff. Has it been a hard, like you've touched on it being hard, you've got to keep challenging and keep moving forward. Are you finding now that challenge is less complicated for you now that you've got people around you, like Roland Owen as an example, who's working with you, from Adobe, obviously somebody who's well versed in data. So you've got some amazing people around you. Are you finding it easier in that space now because you've got those people with you?
Absolutely. Early days on, it was only me. It was only late nights, and it was only this hard investment and hard challenge and believing. And then you kind of don't want to kick something in unless it actually starts happening. And then when you see Safari start deprecating cookie, and then actually people trying to figure out, that's where you kind of kick in, and you're like, this is the moment. And I think like five years ago, it started to cook, still didn't move in.
Right.
And then you wait a moment to hire people. And then there's a famous thing in the business where, because I was also playing sport professionally, right? And I always have this philosophy: you better have a smaller team of people that are really good. That's how I hire. You go and hire really like-minded people, and I would rather have 5-10 people than 300 people, because if they're really good at what I do, they believe in what I do, the results are outstanding. So the team, that's how I assemble the team around me. Everybody believes in everything I do, and they believe, and they're willing to go around and risk everything and try to shape something good. So it's 10 times easier for me. Like 5 years ago, it would be like me sitting down and, doing like 14, 15 hours a day, like really literally going really hard. So now it's a different story. And I'm very proud of the team.
Yeah, and you've got the right people around you from what I've seen, and as my experience with Roland as well, an amazing person to work with who is very astute in what he does, and is very passionate about looking after the customer, but also making the business work as well. I think where I've seen AdFixus pop up more so recently, probably about 2 years ago, for me was how quickly it's become a name and a brand that people are familiar with. And I think to some point, I suppose the point that I want to make is that you've just highlighted the work that's gone in beforehand, and now everything seems to be moving quite well. Is that you've got some great products as a result of that, also, as well as the stuff. You've got conversion APIs that are helping advertisers understand where their campaigns are, converting from the user experience. Is that part of your evolving strategy to build out these solutions with your team?
Yeah, absolutely. We keep innovating. We keep building different solutions. And the moment when we come into a specific problem, we hit a specific problem with the publishers or advertisers, we kind of bang on tackle the problem. And to be fair, we've been usually thinking about those problems ahead of the time. So it's not like, hey, there's a problem. There's always this vision that, kind of when I speak to Ron, he's like, how did we know this is going to happen? I can plan ahead. This is what I love doing, trying to see this vision, what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years, and then building ahead. And then when something happens, you already have it. Like conversion APIs, we had them for 2 years, right? All first-party conversion APIs that tells a story. It's all about that value. Okay, how do you solve the relevancy? How do you stop hitting the user with the same ad for 50 times? That's a conversion API. You go around, you bought a car. I don't want you to send me an ad for a car, but send me insurance, right? Give me a deal on insurance, and I'm going to buy it anyway. So that's what we're trying to do, to solve the problem and give the value to all the parties involved. Consumer also being part of a very important piece of this story, because without the consumer, you have nothing else.
Yeah.
So we build this conversion API, then we build all those real-time streams. You basically have something super cool, which means that your conversions are happening in real time. If you go from one site to another, and you convert or you buy something, we have built the whole pipeline attack that actually makes sure that you don't see the same ad twice.
Yeah. Look, I'm a firm believer that the reason why we have the internet is about that two-way discussion. Otherwise, we go into the old legacy standard of having a broadcast product where it's literally broadcast, as we know, to a user who's watching a television or reading a newspaper or radio and not really getting that information back on whether they've engaged or had any contact with your content. I think this conversion piece is really important. Is that a focus for you now on this conversion piece, or is there other opportunities that you're working on that are bigger and better than that?
That's the primary thing, because that gives the value to that gives the control back of the data to the advertiser. So it's not just the publisher anymore. we also have, on top of that, we have a product that enables the advertiser to measure their campaigns. They can append the first-party trackers. So you traditionally had those third-party impression and click trackers that are not going to operate across different environments. Now we have our own product, which is basically the similar thing. That's why I said change needs to come in steps, right? It's similar thing you would normally do. You append impression and click tracker that we provide to advertisers, and you can run it across multiple publishers, and you can get your unique reach. Super powerful. You're an advertiser, you want to see how many unique users you got across different pubs. You can see that, and then you can intersect that with your data and look at your GA and everything else, see where the conversions are coming. Now, what is the most powerful thing about this stuff? Today, you don't know as an advertiser what's coming from social, what's coming from different channels, because you are blind to that. It's closed ecosystem. They don't tell you. If you don't have the stuff that we have, you only naturally attribute that stuff to social. You will say, oh, I got 3 clicks from News Corp, and I got 75 in total. I don't know where they're coming from. So 75 must be YouTube, Instagram, whatever, right? With what we've done, we've proven that the premium content produces the premium conversions, because once when you know, understand your knowns, and unknowns can be only the rest, right? So if you understand 100% of stuff that you can measure across your premium pubs, then okay, the rest must be coming from somewhere else. Currently, it's skewed towards the different story.
Yeah, so can I just ask a question, and just to clarify? So, because social media it has always been a challenge for advertisers when we talk about unified reporting. If we want to use the case study for a premium publisher like you've got with Seven, where they've got a digital ad campaign from a marketer's perspective running across their network, they might also have the same campaign running across social media. And the marketer is obviously looking to see how that user has converted. Are you able to unify both premium and social media campaigns? Is that what you're talking about?
No. You can't. Yeah. It's walled garden. You don't have any ID there. That people ask me this question all the time. Yes. But I'm saying, as long as you can uniquely identify the other part, right? So let's assume you're an advertiser, you run a campaign across, 5 publishers, right? And as long as you can measure that campaign across those 5 publishers, you can separate creatives as well, and run different creatives. Yeah. You can do the different landing page, different tags. You can do different things. That's the way how you can actually run a proper A/B test, and how you can actually properly determine what's coming from where. Once when you know what's coming from your premium pubs, you will see the rest is coming from social. And I'm not saying don't spend money on social. Of course, that's stupid. Spend money everywhere. It's just like get your mix right. Try to figure out where's that actually coming from. Like it's not one or the other. It's just being a bit smarter where you spend your money, and nurture your top of the funnel with end of the funnel, right? You do some top of the funnel with a mixture of both social media and whatnot. You get many eyeballs, and then end of the funnel is when they convert. That's where you need to go into premium. You're not going to get a person converting on Facebook. You're going to get a person converting on a specific ad. So I'm just talking about being more strategic and evolving. But this is that change, right? We haven't done that before. We've just kind of done one thing, and then, let's just do social now because we see the same results. That's what we're solving for. We actually want to give the undoubtful view, completely objective view from someone else who doesn't have any monetary value in here, that you can actually see where the data is coming from.
Yep.
And if you can tie that to your CRM, if you're an advertiser, you tie it to CRM and conversion at the end, then you can answer the question, who bought a car? Who did this stuff?
That makes sense. That's really interesting. What's your background? Like I touched on before about your traveling. You've talked about obviously building a business, and you've come into this space. Was it data in your background in university? How do you get into this?
Now you're going to touch the career that probably had about 15 jobs.
Right.
I was a CEO 3 times. I was a CEO in telco business. I was a CEO in a software company in Europe that had clients in 40 countries. Mm-hmm. I'm a techie guy. I code. So I'll tell you the story about Adobe. But one of the things that happens in our business is there's the hardest problem, Marko sits down and solves it. So I'm coding. Yep. I'm deep into code. Yep. I've done various things. I've done senior roles to, developer roles to, when I was in Microsoft, was more of a program management role. Really a mixture of different things. And that's why I say I expose myself to all sorts of different stuff to learn as much as I can. It's not just one single. It's really career goes up and down. If you look at my career, it goes up and down. And that's because of the change, right? You change a country, you start from zero, right? It's scary. Change a job, it's hard. It's hard. Changing the country, it's different. So my background is I'm still coding. I've been always very passionate about it. I'm a founder who likes to sit down and code. And that's how we did stuff with Adobe. That was an interesting story. We've been trying to do this integration with them for a long time, and then there was a meeting when we kind of walked in a meeting of 15 people, brilliant people from Adobe. One of the architects sat down, and then me and him, we started designing the solution in the call. And they were like, that was after 6 months of us trying to figure out. I wasn't in the calls, and I walked in the meeting, and then we started designing the call, and he's like, yeah, we're doing it. But I think people like when they see it's not just the vision, it's actually the execution as well.
Yeah.
And that's how I roll. I roll by an example. I'm like, I believe in you lead by an example.
That sounds great. Are we talking obviously standardization across XML? Is that where you found unification with Adobe?
No, with Adobe, what we did, we sort of went with this whole cycle. How do we integrate directly into the CDP? How do we integrate with the collaboration
Like
product?
Apache,
And what does this? What does this look like from the perspective that what was big discussion? Just even when I talk about DSPs and the whole system, I push back whenever there's a glimpse of compromising on the privacy.
Yep.
Right. So unless I can sit down and figure out how do we do this in a way that nobody gets exposed, I'm not doing it. And people will tell you that in a business, like Marko doesn't do stuff that he does. But that was a point of contention, and that's why everybody asked me, why are you not solving? Why is it taking so long to solve on Open Exchange, right? Why is it so hard to solve the SSPs and DSPs? Because yes, you can solve it with sending the same ID to SSPs and they track you, sending the other stuff. So it's actually harder than you think, because you need to think about the solution. How do you solve the pipes without exposing the privacy? And that's what we are doing next. It takes time. The same problem was with Adobe, right? How do you solve it?
Luckett, you're heavily into obviously Google Ad Manager and all the different SSPs and DSPs. How have you found in the space of unifying data? Because we talk a lot about data loss or signal loss. Does this sort of resonate and come into your world as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two separate things really, related but separate, which is unifying data, but then also on the identity side of things, which is just being able to, identify individuals. And I mean, the question that I kind of wanted to get to was, there are a lot of ID solutions out there, and I mean, you can kind of summarize it to like a top 5, I guess. But what is it about AdFixus, in your words, that kind of separates you from the rest of the pack in terms of ID solutions out there?
Most of I've seen on the market, and you all probably know this, you'll find a lot of probabilistic ones. Most of them, they'll try to guess based on the open RTB signals, based on the browser APIs, all sort of stuff. Like we can call it, that's probabilistic, right? I believe in deterministic one. You give me the consent, it's the cookie in your browser. There's no me guessing who you are. CTV is another ball game. They go and try to do probabilistic on IP address and other stuff. So that's one bucket. The other bucket is ID graphs. They collect all this stuff. They try to build the ID graphs, resell the data back. So everybody's trying to still play the same game of let's control the data. Let's not give. I haven't seen anybody. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that changed. Even at the beginning, early days on, that they will contractually give the data back. We contractually give the data back. Our hands off the data. So there's multiple things we are different. We don't do this probabilistic thing. We give the data back to the publishers. We don't build identity graphs. We are sort of very consumer centric, obviously helping publishers, but also making sure they're standing behind this whole privacy thing. I know that data is the most valuable asset, of course. You want to play that, but that's why you have it. But you kind of have to, if you really want to change, you kind of have to give up on that. That's number one step.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about probabilistic, because there is still a lot of debate out there when you speak to some of these other companies around whether they're doing probabilistic identification or not. I know I won't again call anyone out, but there are certain other companies in the ID space who refuse to say that they do probabilistic identification. I've seen. I was listening to another podcast the other day with I think it was the CEO of ID5, who they acquired a company recently or at some time this year, I think, who basically builds ID graphs. So they're combining their ID resolution, their ID capabilities with that ID graphs now. So it's interesting to see. I think a lot of the different ID solutions out there that I've been paying attention to over the years, kind of attaching themselves to different solutions, so they're not just ID providers in and of themselves. There's part of a broader, I guess, product suite that they're offering, and then you've got, you know, things like ad forms, ID fusion, and ID aggregation, where, you know, that once we moved out of the third-party cookie world into universal IDs. I remember early conversations where people were saying that, you know, we could theoretically get to a point in the future where we have hundreds of different ID providers, and then you'll need ID aggregators to be able to.
Hope not.
Yeah.
Hope not, for the sake of all of us. And as I said, like, just to be clear, we moved into that space of not just being the ID, but I also want to give you another glimpse here. So for publishers, for example, we moved in a world when there's a smaller publisher, they need a pipeline to solve all this. They need to understand how they're going to receive the events, how they're going to do all these different things. We have that product. The difference between us and others, we host that product in your infra and we give it to you. So think about how powerful it is. Like, it's not us building the graph. Hey, you're like, hey, I don't know, you have smaller publishers, I don't have a CDP, right? What do I do? How do I build segments for this CAPI solution, right? We now have a product that we launched. We give you the whole stack. You launch it in your infrastructure under your control, your data. So we're going to do the same stuff. So it's super powerful from that perspective. Yeah, obviously you can build the product yourself, but I'm still keeping the same concept. Stay away from data. This is publisher data. You want to do this stuff? Perfect. Yes. And so everything we're building and trying to solve those problems. And as you said, like, I've seen the same thing as you, like multiple things, I don't know why it's so hard to say I'm doing a probabilistic one, right? Why it's so hard to go and say I'm doing it. And I'll tell you, I built it myself. We actually have some fraud detection that I built like 6 years ago. I built a probabilistic browser one that's actually extremely accurate. And people are asking, why you? I'm like, no, because, you know, this is going to go, like, KPIs are changing, whatever. It's not like, and also it's someone who put a sticker on you that you can never remove, right? People are, oh, it's like, it's the ID that stays with you forever, even if you bloody delete the browser, right? So not literally, but you know what I mean? It's sort of stuff that you don't want to have, that persistent thing. And obviously you can never have the accuracy and everything else. It's just like, but it's not hard to say. You do it. That's the best you can. Like, people are doing it on CTV because there's no other way to share the anonymous data. There's better solutions, but, you know, they require change.
Yeah. It's also like another dirty word out there is fingerprinting, which is
exactly.
You know, what
I'm trying to avoid it, you know, because whenever I say it, Roland is like, "Don't say fingerprinting," but yes, exactly. But you know, like, I've done this stuff before, so I built the whole script myself that some people in the company still don't understand. It's actually super accurate, right? And just to prove it can be done, it sits there, does some of the stuff for fraud detection. I think you should use it for fraud detection. That's why banks are using it. That's why it's good. You know, you go around and figure out. But even that's a cat and mouse. Now, people that want to do fraud, they are doing more sophisticated stuff. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well, moving away from the tech into kind of the privacy and regulatory environment. You know, recently, you mentioned this earlier, I believe, around the potential changes in GDPR over in Europe with the draft proposal that's been put out recently around kind of, I guess, watering down some of the requirements and whether or not that goes ahead or what that looks like. You've got Australia looking at the Tranche 2 changes to the Privacy Act coming up early next year. You've got recently hearing that in the US, the current administration is finally is having conversations with industry groups around federal-based privacy regulation. So it's something that, you know, we kind of thought, especially with GDPR, that this was settled law by now, but obviously that's not the case. This is going to be an ongoing, changing environment for a long time to come. Are you seeing, obviously you guys are kind of expanding into global markets and doing a lot of work in those regions. What's the conversation that you guys are having, particularly in Europe, with potential changes there?
Well, I'm hoping that, as you said, like, I'm actually glad to see that it's changing. Like, maybe just me. I like changes, and I like changes because they usually result something good, right? At the beginning, you might make mistakes. I'm hoping that Europe, as you said, like, we're expanding in those markets, we're expanding in the States. I'm hoping that Europe is going to land in a spot where there's going to be just implicit consent on a single site. It's going to be super simple. And it's going to be like, hey, I give consent to this site and I don't give consent to anyone else, right? They should be controlling everything, right? Not like me trying to understand That's what they're probably trying to realize. It's too complex for a common user to go in there and understand. They don't even know what they're signing up. They don't understand the legal terms, none of that stuff. Most people don't understand what's a third-party cookie versus first-party cookie, right? Not to their mistake. Just like we are in this industry, it's super easy for us. But most of them, oh, I don't know. I know I've been tracked. How am I being tracked? Oh, I don't have an idea. And then you have a coffee with someone, explain, and they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, really, mate. And then if you sign in somewhere, then that becomes even better, right? So people will be genuinely concerned if they are educated. That's what normally happens. So I think the law is going to go into our favor. As you said, like it's evolving. To just cut it short, it's evolving. It's probably going to evolve even more, and I hope it's going to evolve into our favor. Having a bit, not creating a huge collateral damage. We create something in between.
Marko, in the world of GDPR, are you considered a data processor?
That's a question for my legal. I don't think we are, because we went through some of the contracts in there already. I think the only thing that we are technically touching base on, it's once when we do this CAPI, right? Because CAPI sort of sits in between. So that's where you would classify yourself as a processor, because you need to go and process in real time. But that's where I would probably put a bracket. We are probably in that category when we do the streaming and CAPI and conversion connection between the advertiser and the publisher.
Yeah, I'd say the ID solution, because it's on the publisher's infrastructure. I'd say, and again, this isn't legal advice, but I'd say you're probably not a processor in that scenario.
If you put everything in there, and listen, the tech is even designed that can be even broken in different pieces and actually hosted. Nobody has done this, but you can host the endpoint, the last endpoint on your infra, which means completely make us blind ourselves. So everything, it's just an extra layer of protection. When you asked me at the beginning, how do we protect? It's designed like that. But yeah, I think it all depends on what we've seen so far. Even when we're doing what was the latest question when we were joining and doing other stuff, like the industry doesn't have answers for us. We are different. So when you go to the question and they're asking you questions, they're used to this stuff that's happening, and then you're like, I don't fit in this stuff because I don't do any of this. Like you're like you're different, right? And you're like you're trying to fit in the question of something they're used to asking, and that's where you realize that's when you ask me, how do we know we are different? Because you respond differently to those questions. You need to explain to them that you're not doing it. Right?
And is that it's a perfect segue into my next question. I've kind of found over the years, maybe I'm biased in this because I've come from more of the ad tech in terms of like not data and identity, programmatic and ad ops and all that kind of stuff. I've found in my dealings with people that when it comes to identity, data, and privacy, that these are probably some of the more dense subjects in the industry in terms of like the complexity and people's lack of knowledge and understanding. Do you guys spend a lot of your time just purely educating people in the industry and potential clients?
Yes, we do, and I think we overcomplicate things. Nothing is actually so complex. Yeah, I've been in ad tech, I've been in Channel 9 in those days when they were rebuilding the whole CTV and everything else, running their ad tech. Right? So, and I always went back and like, this is not so complex. Why are we making it so hard? It's like, it's not really that hard, right? It's like, there's obviously experience and everything else, but I think we tend to overcomplicate things, and that's why we created our own mess. Like you go around and create this massive problem. But it's like, yes, we spend a lot of time educating, right? Educating on privacy. What are you doing? Why is this like that? So yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, that's so true. Where do you see the industry in what you're doing in 5 years' time from now, or maybe like 2030?
Oh, I think 2030 it's too far.
Really?
I'll tell you why. Because no, my brain works on 5 or 10 years. Honestly, the reason why I'm saying that stuff, when I spoke to my friends, even years back, people that were building the machine learning and all the AI and whatnot, nobody expected we're going to be in 2024 being able to do this stuff. They all thought it's going to take another 5 to 10 years. It's going to take longer, right? So suddenly you have like, bonk, you're here, right? And I think that's going to bring the change to all of us. I can tell you what I think is going to happen. We're going to have a movement. Obviously, the laws are going to take a couple of years. So we're already 2025. So I think we're looking at another 2 to 3 years for them to agree, maybe even longer. Like they need to take into consideration the implication of the big companies and revenue and everything else. We're going to land in a world where the privacy is going to be important. I think we're also going to land in a world where it's going to be really important of how AI is going to parse our data and how that's going to work with the publishers. We already had a problem with, content being scraped and, publishers having a problem. How do they produce the content if it's presented on search engine? Now you're going to have a different problem. You already have 50-60% of web traffic. That's what I've been trying to educate people. About 50% of web is now bots, right? All sorts of bots, right? Yeah. So it's increasing it. That's why I said and we still think about, I want to have a massive pool of matches. I'm like, now you have 50% of bots. You only operate with 50% of traffic. So you basically have that pool increasing, and it's going to increase more and more. More companies are going to pump in their money into AI. Publishers will need to really think about in our industry, how do we fit into this new world? How do we fit in a world where you're going to have some form of AI trying to optimize the campaign, trying to buy stuff? How do you going to retain the privacy in that whole thing? So I think it's going to be a next layer of changes coming our way in the next 2 to 3 years, where we will all need to evolve and make this industry better. But I think we need to work together to build better foundation for that. It's like we're building a new house now. We are demolishing the old one. We're trying to build a new house. So let's build better foundations. When the AI comes in, we don't make the same mistakes. We don't end up having floating all of our data across the system. So I think near future, 5 years, 10 years, it's a bit harder to guess. But 5 years, I think we're going to live in a world where it's going to be a big combo of this AI hype and agents buying and communicating and trying to create a value for publishers that will need to produce the content for AI.
It's interesting, isn't it? I look back over the last 10, 15 years and you can see the lead up to where we are today in retrospect with obviously just, basic data collection, integrating into new data platforms popping up. We're talking about CDPs and hash data and the solutioning that goes around in that cloud-based solutions. And obviously, we're now at a point where we are just moving at a rate and it's all on the foundation of data. And I think the value of data, you touched on this just before, is, I think it's underrated. I think it's overcomplicated in the way that people express what it is. It's the way I think and see it, data is actually really super simple. It's how you curate it or manage it and store it, and the laws that go around that to protect it obviously make it more complicated. But would you share that thought as well?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I don't think that any value on data has changed. No. It's the same like it was 15 years ago. Yeah. The only difference is like 15 years ago, you had big tech understanding the value of this data and predicting and having models even back then that can predict what you're going to do before you do it, which is scary, right? That's what they've been doing. It's now the wider industry understands my future, and even publishers, my future is going to be tied to data. I need to know what I'm doing because otherwise I'm going to be eaten. I'm going to be in a problem if I don't, right? And then how do I get the data? It's not get the quality data. How do you curate? Exactly what you said. Like, how do we deal with this stuff? It's not that complex yet. There's going to be work, but yeah, it's just like, and treating the data, understanding it's the most valuable asset you have, right?
I like to use the analogy that it's just an Excel spreadsheet with a whole stack of rows and columns. That's at the very basic fundamental state of what data is.
Pretty much, yes, exactly.
It's amazing, isn't it? Now, just before we wrap up, I want to ask you around about your leadership style. You have got an amazing wealth of knowledge, experience, and I think Paul and I both share your passion for the industry and have become multi-skilled in our careers to do as much as we can. I think it's like a little kid with toys where you get all these really great ad tech, publisher tech if you want, or marketing tech, media tech toys to play with. But it's now, we're talking about democratizing all of these technologies that used to be so expensive that the average person would not have had a digital mobile phone in their pocket 20, 30 years ago that can do what it can do now. What is your leadership around this and how you want to shape the people that you work with and who work for you?
My leadership style is to try to, you may have seen this hopefully with this talk, passion. I'm all about the passion. I believe in what I do, and that's what I liked from my team. Everybody around me is the same. They're strong believers, and my leadership style is, as I said, lead by an example. So if you want to change the industry, it needs to come at a cost, and I've been absorbing that cost. I'm not trying to say this for myself, but people know I've been absorbing this cost for many years, and I'm going to keep absorbing it just to get it done. It has to be done. I do it because this has to be done. Someone has to do it. I'm not saying it's me, just we all have to do it together. And that's my leadership style. Okay, take it. You need to do it. You do it for the right reasons. You don't do it for those who know me. You don't do it for recognition. I don't care. You don't do it for your shiny LinkedIn profile or anything like that. You do it because it has to be done. And I don't mind if I stay forgotten forever, as long as we get to the point at the end where we're all happy, right? So that's what I need from people like you, from everybody else listening to this stuff, to truly believe and to say this is a common. This is a movement of all of us. The change is always a movement of all of us. We need to change a lot of things. This is just one industry, but we start and change one thing at a time.
Luckett, we're seeing and hearing a lot of this from everyone that we're talking to. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fascinating. I think back to my career 20 years ago, and it was a very hierarchical structure where you had to do something to get somewhere. There definitely was not the element of collaboration and opportunity to learn from mistakes. And I wonder whether that's because there's just so much going on right now that not one person can know everything, that they build businesses now with people that you have to trust to do the job. But you can also build them up to do the job properly as well, that they have an aptitude for learning and a discipline to do that.
Yeah, we are evolving. I think as a humanity, we're also evolving. We are forced. Think about us, like all of those changes happening across everything we do. We need to evolve. There's stuff happening at a faster pace. And if you go back, and it was back in time 20 years ago, haven't had so many changes, right? Look at the last 10, 15 years. And it seems to be accelerating. And I think that's probably what's scaring people. Like, it's accelerating even faster and faster. So we're just going to have more and more breakthroughs as a humanity. And that's why I think we realize now that it's not anymore about this approach we had a long time ago. It's more about one person cannot change anything. I cannot do this. I would not be able to be here unless people like you believe in this, unless people on publisher side believe, unless the whole industry believes, everybody believes that they all want to do the best. That's a good step.
Yeah.
I think the piece of advice as well that I'd give is, I heard this from Amy Anson-Flynn a couple of years back, that when we're talking about cookie deprecation and a lot of companies out there, this is when Google was committed to getting rid of third-party cookies from Chrome. And then we're dilly-dallying around that. But the advice that was given was that, the imperative to make change around that and to invest in solutions, it's not based on whatever Chrome's doing, because people have to remember that Safari and Firefox got rid of third-party cookies years ago. So half of the internet already doesn't have third-party cookies. So, if you're waiting, then you're missing out on potentially 50% of your audience that you're not addressing.
Yeah, 100%. Now you said what I'm trying to say when we do this educational piece. But, it's kind of a problem, because you have this happened 7 years ago, right? 8 years ago. So your baseline is lower. Right, when you try, so you don't know what you're losing unless that is what happened with Carlson's. They didn't know what they were losing unless they actually reverted back to visibility. So you need to kind of revert back and have what am I losing? You tell someone you're losing 50%, but they're like, I'm making money, I'm okay, right? So what you're 100% spot on, Paul. So it's like already 50% is missed. So it's sort of, you need to get the baseline up to see what you're losing.
Fantastic. Marko, if you could leave the audience with one message today, one idea to carry with them, what would that be?
That would be that we all need to work together on fixing the privacy and understanding, as you said, understanding that data belongs to us.
Nice, I like that.
Simple.
Yeah, very good. Marko Markovic at AdFixus. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. We look forward to hopefully seeing you again on the show, and you can share us an update on the advancement of conversion APIs in your world.
Anytime. Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for watching and listening to the show today. We look forward to seeing you again next time here on Media Tech Talk. Dean Swan, Vice President and General Manager for Asia Pacific and Japan at Monday.com, joins us next on Media Tech Talk as we explore how Monday.com is helping media and creative teams do more with less, delivering faster, smarter, and without losing their creative spark. From campaign strategy to content creation, we'll uncover how technology and a touch of AI can turn collaboration into a creative superpower. Join us in the conversation that's inspiring media minds. That's next on Media Tech Talk.